So one argument I often have with people in Washington is about whether the Iraq War was a triggering factor. There's a suggestion that a lot of people like to make, and it's not really a partisan suggestion, more of an ideological one, that getting rid of Saddam Hussein just sort of ripped the lid off the Middle East, and it was from thence that everything began to domino, topple regimes, the Arab Spring. What do you say to that?
Well, I say you've got to look back at history. We had a very serious nuclear proliferation problem in the Middle East that goes back to 1981, long before we did anything vis-a-vis Saddam Hussein. But in 81, he had a nuclear program at the Osirik reactor outside Baghdad. The Israelis took it out. When I was Secretary of Defense in the summer of 90, I was visited by my Israeli counterpart, the Defense Minister Misha Aarons, and the senior uniformed officer, Ehud Barak, and they showed me evidence that Saddam had started up in 1990, a nuclear program again, and then it was pretty far along. In Desert Storm, we went in, we took out that program. The IAEA went in afterwards and did an investigation and found out that he was much closer than we thought to actually having nuclear capability. This was an independent, international atomic energy agency that went in and checked that. That's not something the United States came up with, and that was before we ever got into the WMD debate with respect to when we went in 2003. It's a long history of Saddam Hussein trying to develop weapons of mass destruction. The first intelligence report I saw after I got elected vice president in 2000 warned about Iraq and WMD. So the activities of Saddam Hussein overwhelmingly created ferment and turmoil and raised the specter, especially of a link between terror on the one hand and weapons of mass destruction on the other. He used chemical weapons against thousands of his own people at Al Abja in 1988. I mean, he had a well-established track record that he was a troublemaker, and he had invaded Kuwait before, and we did go in with the support of a lot of Democrats, and in 2003, and we achieved our objective in that we got rid of Saddam Hussein. That also precipitated other activities. We found out, for example, that Muammar Gaddafi had a nuclear program, and 5 days after we captured Saddam Hussein, he surrendered all of his nuclear materials to us, his centrifuges, uranium feedstock, weapons design. So the circumstances over there in terms of the problems and the difficulties that we're developing pointed in the direction of what was my biggest fear, which was the possibility that terrorists would ultimately acquire something far deadlier than airline tickets and box cutters and require a nuclear weapon or chemicals or a biological agent. I was quoted in an interview I did about 5 months before 9/11 that was our biggest threat, and I think it still is today. And we've still got a very serious nuclear proliferation problem now that goes back over 30 years.
And the Iranians, of course, are unleashed at this point.
The Iranians are unleashed. I don't want to spend all your time on the subject, but we had 1987, Mr. A.Q. Khan, who put together the Pakistani program, in a hotel in Dubai, sold the Iranians the basic plans for centrifuges for $3 million, 1987. We found, of course, on our watch, when Meir Dagan showed up, the Israeli head of Mossad, that Syria had a nuclear reactor that had been built for them by the North Koreans. The Israelis took it out in the fall of 2007. What's worked in that part of the world for dealing with the nuclear problem has been military force or the threat of military force. And the thing about the Obama administration is they didn't pursue that option. Obama wrote it off from the very beginning. What they did was try to bribe the Iranians into being good guys and giving up their program. But the net result of that was to provide them with $150 billion of money that they can spend on supporting terror. We have altered our policies, I think, during the Obama administration in major ways to appease the Iranians, when strength and the possible use of force has been the key in the past, but it hasn't been used in this administration at all, and I think that's to the detriment of our interest.